Hello, friends from across the nation and around the world. I'm Martin, and you are listening to Dad's Bedtime Stories, the podcast that takes listener ideas and turns them into bedtime stories. Tonight, we're finally headed back into the Dragon Knights universe, a place we haven't been in a while because, I guess mostly because there's just a bunch of stories I wanted to do, and I was waiting on somebody to give me a really good nature dragon general suggestion, and I finally got it, so let's check it out.
Hi Martin, it's Rowyn from Bracebridge, Ontario, Canada, and I have my finished story for the Dragon Knight series, for the Nature Dragon General's backstory. I think it's good if, there was a girl named Vine. She got lost in the forest when she was really little, and she found a cave and ventured inside, where she found a small dragon. The dragon name was Bloom. The Bloom could make anything grow anytime or anywhere. Bloom protected, fed, and cared for Vine until her family found her. The connection was strong, that was no doubt. Years later, the Dragon King attacked Vine's village, capturing Bloom. Vine pretended she was not a dragon knight, to be part of the Dragon King's army with Bloom by her side. But thanks, I love your podcast, bye.
Great suggestion from Rowyn, who is also one of my Patreon sponsors, and it fits really well with another nature dragon general suggestion I got from Millie, who did the water dragon general suggestion. So I think I can fit this all together, other than I did have to talk to Rowyn about changing the name of the main character, because Vine is already the name of the nature dragon in the series, and she agreed that Violet would be fine, so that's what we're going to go with today. I'd also like to give a big shout out to Ibrahim, who wrote in to see if I was going to continue this series at all, so that gave me a bit of a kick in the pants to start. Anyways, I spent a good amount of time putting all of those ideas together into what I think makes sense for the series, and I hope you guys like it. Because now, it's that time again, after a possible word from a possible sponsor. Close your eyes, get as comfy as you can in that bed, and, well, imagine yourself doing what the Dragon General in the story does. Before Violet was ever called the Nature Dragon General, and before she stood beside the Dragon King with a silent nature dragon under her command, and before anyone believed she'd betrayed everything she once loved, she was just a little girl lost in the woods. The forest where Violet grew up was no ordinary forest. It was old. Older than most villages, older than most roads, older than anyone's great-grandmother's great-grandmother, which is generally considered quite old by anyone listening. Violet loved it. Her parents, however, loved it a little less when Violet wandered off too far into the woods. "Stay near the path," her mother would say. "Don't follow strange noises," her father would add. And Violet always, meant to listen. She really did, but one afternoon when she was still very young, she heard a sound between the trees. It wasn't a voice exactly, it wasn't really music, but it was something kind of between the two, almost like the roots were humming beneath the ground. She stopped picking berries and looked deeper into the woods. The sound was calling to her. Now, in her defense, most children would probably have ignored a mysterious forest sound, but Violet was not most children, and this sound had something special. It really felt like it was talking to her. So, she followed it. At first, she only went a little bit off the path, but then she went a little more, and before long, she'd completely left the path and, well, lost all track of where she was going. But she continued to follow the sound until her legs ached. The rain soon began to fall, and Violet ran for shelter, pushing through wet ferns and thick vines until she found a rocky hill almost completely hidden by roots. And there, tucked behind hanging moss, was a cave. She hesitated for a moment before stepping inside. But luckily, the cave was dry, at least near the entrance. As she continued to move deeper into the cave, she noticed that the walls weren't rough like a normal cave. They were smooth, carved with patterns of leaves, branches, and roots. "This isn't just a cave," she whispered. "Somebody made this place." A soft green glow answered from deep inside, and for some strange, inexplicable reason, Violet continued towards it. The tunnel opened into a round chamber, and sitting in the center of it was an egg, a really big egg. It was green and gold with little vine-like lines growing on its shell. Violet stared at it. She knew what it was before anyone told her. Everyone knew stories of dragon eggs, even if most people never expected to see one. Dragons were real in her world after all. Dragon knights were real too, but they belonged to the strongholds, legends, and important people, not people like Violet. Nonetheless, Violet stepped closer, and the egg pulsed with light. Something inside her chest pulled back too. She reached out and touched the shell. At that instant, the egg cracked. Green light filled the chamber. The shell split apart, and from inside, a little tiny dragonling with bright green scales climbed out. It blinked at Violet, and Violet blinked back. "You are very small," the dragon said. Violet gasped. You can talk?" "Of course I can talk," the dragon replied. "I'm a dragon. Talking is one of the easier things to do." Violet stared for another second. "I'm lost," she said. The dragonling tilted her head. "I know." "You know?" "Yes, I could feel you coming. You followed the roots." "I followed a sound," she said. "That was the roots," the dragon said. "Or the earth, or me. It's hard to tell. Everything's connected." Violet didn't understand that yet, but the words settled in her chest like something very important. The dragonling stepped closer. "My name is Bloom," she said, "and you are my dragon knight." Violet looked behind herself just in case there was like another person standing there or something, but there was no one. "Me?" "Yes," Bloom said. "You." Then a light burst between them. It was a warm light. It felt like sunlight shining through leaves. It felt good as it hit her, and suddenly she felt something else. She felt the dragon's heartbeat beside her own. She felt the roots of the cave, the moss on the stone. For one impossible moment, she felt everything living around her as if it were all part of the same, the same her. Then, the light faded. Violet looked down at her arms and legs and saw that she was covered in armor. Armor she recognized, armor she'd seen pictures of before in storybooks. Nature Dragon Knight armor, and at her side was a Nature Dragon Knight sword. I'm really a Dragon Knight now? She asked. Yep, you sure are, and I'm hungry. Violet looked around the cave. Well, what do you eat? Bloom sniffed the air and crawled around. Then she opened her mouth and took a bite out of a thick green vine. Plants, Bloom said. Life, sunlight stored in leaves, water stored in fruit, roots, vines, flowers, seeds. It's all really good to me. Over the next few days, Violet and Bloom stayed near the cave. Bloom ate, and Violet learned a bit about her powers. She learned how to call and dismiss her Dragon Knight armor, how to use her sword and shield, and she learned a little bit about her connection to the earth itself. From Bloom, of course. At the same time, Violet's parents searched desperately for her. The whole village searched, but the forest was deep and the rain had washed away her tracks. Bloom took care of her. She grew berries from empty soil. She curled vines into a soft bed. She made giant leaves bend together into a roof. And when Violet was sad at nighttime, Bloom curled around her like a warm blanket. You'll see them again soon, Bloom promised. How do you know? Violet asked. The forest brought you to me. I will not keep you from them forever. Soon I will be big enough to fly. They will be easy to find after that. And Bloom was right. She grew quickly as dragons did. Every day she ate leaves, roots, and flowers, and every day she became stronger and larger. Soon, she was large enough for Violet to ride through the forest, though not quite large enough to fly yet. Together, they started to wander further from the cave, and Bloom taught Violet about her nature magic, how to listen to the plants, how to listen to the animals, how to listen to the forest itself, and how to control it, how to ask it to do what you wanted it to do. By the time Bloom was large enough to fly, Violet was one with the forest. She was no longer afraid of it. She felt like she belonged to it and in it. One morning, Bloom lowered herself beside the cave. I think it's time, she said. So, Violet climbed onto her back, holding on tight as Bloom ran through the trees and leapt into the air, spreading her wings and pulling the two of them higher and higher until they were well above the green canopy. Violet saw the forest from above for the first time. It stretched forever in every direction, rolling like an ancient ocean of leaves. Bloom circled once and then, well, she followed a pull that only she seemed to understand. Less than a half hour later, they landed in a clearing near Violet's village. Violet's mother saw her first. She dropped the basket she was carrying, and she screamed Violet's name as she ran toward her. There were tears, of course, and there were hugs, and there were questions, and there was also a lot of staring at Bloom. Word spread quickly. A child had returned from the deep forest riding a nature dragon. A message, of course, was sent to the Nature Dragon Knights. They would want to know about this. 3 days later, they came. They came from the jungle region where the strongest nature dragons and their riders trained among the enormous trees and ancient sacred groves. Their armor gleamed green. Their dragons moved like living forests. And they examined Bloom. They examined Violet. And they bowed. "A true bond," their leader said. "The dragon has chosen." Violet's parents didn't want to lose her again, but the nature dragons explained that Violet needed training. Not because she was being taken from her family, but because the bond she carried was powerful and sacred. She was bound for better and more important things. And so, Violet went to the jungle region. She grew up there among the nature dragon knights and the nature dragons. The jungle region was even wilder than the forest of her childhood. Trees rose up higher than she'd ever seen. Rivers curved through glowing flowers. And in the center of it was the nature dragon stronghold. An entire village that was sort of wound together out of tree branches, roots, and vines. Food grew everywhere, and it was incredibly peaceful, at least most of the time. Violet trained. She learned how to make plants grow from the ground. She learned how to command vines in battle, how to form her shield using her Dragon Knight armor, how to grow fruit instantly, and even how to heal things. Trees, people, animals. It was an advanced technique, but one that many seasoned Dragon Knights learned. If they could command plant cells, they could also command animal cells to heal. Once they saw the connection between all living things anyways. Her trainers soon learned that Violet saw that connection. She saw it almost better than anyone else. Violet became powerful. In fact, she became magnificent. She became one of the strongest nature dragon knights the world had ever seen. Together with Bloom, they could grow forests in minutes. They could command plants to move like waves. They could speak to animals across the jungle and call for their help. But on top of that, Violet had another gift. One that made even the oldest dragon knights whisper. One that came only once in every generation. She could speak to the earth itself. Not the earth the way earth dragons felt it, as like stone and stuff. Violet could feel the life inside it. She heard the threads that connected it, the connections between every growing thing, every creature, every breath. When she stood barefoot on sacred soil and closed her eyes, she could feel the whole jungle breathing, and then the whole world. Sometimes it guided her. Sometimes it warned her, and sometimes it showed her things she did not want to see. When the first word came of the dragon thief, many knights dismissed him as a dangerous wizard and nothing more. And then darker news came. News that some elemental dragons had fallen to this dragon thief. Violet went alone to the most sacred place in the jungle region, a circle of ancient trees so old that even dragons lowered their voices among them. She knelt in the center and pressed both hands into the ground. "Show me," she whispered, and the earth answered. Violet saw fire. She saw dragons with empty eyes. She saw water turned to ice and ice shattered by flame. She saw nature burning. She saw riders running away as their own dragons turned against them. And then she saw something else too. She saw hope. She saw eggs, hidden eggs, a future generation of eggs. Children finding dragons in caves and mountains and swamps and storms, just as she had. True dragon knights rising when the world had almost forgotten them. Violet opened her eyes with tears on her face. She had been shown the path to balance, and she hated it because the path didn't show victory now. It showed survival, preparation, waiting, betrayal. But it was the only path, so Violet began to follow it. First, she called a secret meeting of the Dragon Knight sect, fire, water, wind, earth, nature, and the remaining elemental dragon knights. They all sent leaders. She stood before them in the jungle temple and told them only part of the truth. "The world is changing," she said. "The dragon thief is doing something we do not understand. If we fall, the future must not fall with us. Each sect must hide one egg of each kind, protected by distance and secrecy, waiting for a rider not yet born or not yet ready." Some argued. Some believed it was cowardice. Some believed that the Dragon Knights could never possibly fall. Violet didn't tell them what the earth had shown her. She didn't tell them that their battle was destined to fail. She only said that hope is not cowardice. The seeds must be planted just in case. And in the end, they listened. They hid their eggs. One by one, the future was planted in secret. Then, the war came for the Dragon Knights. By then, the fire dragons had fallen. The water stronghold had gone, and even some of the earth dragons that were found in the mines with the fire dragons had been turned by the dragon thief's army. Violet knew the attack was coming before the scouts did. She felt it in the roots. The nature dragon knights prepared to fight, while Violet prepared to disappear. She removed her armor with a simple thought, and she dressed in the clothes of a servant. She even rubbed a little bit of dirt on her face to sell the whole thing. Bloom stared at her. "No," Bloom said. "Yes," Violet insisted. "You know they will take me." "We both know they'll take you. We know they have to." "You're right," Bloom said. "And you will have to let them." "For a while," Violet responded. "A long while." The battle began at dawn. Fire dragons burned the edge of the jungle. Flames raced up ancient trunks. Water dragons froze defenders in place, trapping wings and armor in ice. and earth dragons ripped trenches through root systems, shattering living walls, and sending stones firing at nature dragon knights. The nature dragons and their knights fought with everything they had. The jungle itself rose to defend them. Vines grabbed riders, trees bent to block fire, roots pulled dragons from the sky. But the dragon thief's control spell moved like poison. One by one, nature dragons stiffened and turned. Then, Bloom was taken. Violet felt the bond vanish. Not break exactly, but, well, it was blocked. Buried beneath something else. Bloom's eyes went empty, and Violet nearly screamed, but instead, she lowered her head and kept carrying water buckets like a terrified servant. When the fortress fell, the dragon thief offered the survivors a choice: swear loyalty or be taken prisoner. Many refused. Violet stepped forward and bowed. "I will serve," she said. The dragon thief barely looked at her at first. But Violet joined the army as one of the many survivors. She was quiet, obedient, but very, very powerful. When her first training match came, a soldier twice her size laughed when she stepped into the ring. He stopped laughing when Violet put him on the ground in about 3 seconds. The next one lasted 5, and the next almost 10. Violet had trained as a dragon knight, and even without Bloom's power flowing through her, she knew how to move, how to balance, how to strategize, and how to fight. The Dragon King noticed. "Bring her forward," he said after the first tournament. Violet bowed low. "You fought well," he said, "for a servant." "Thank you, Your Majesty," Violet replied. "So, you served the Dragon Knights." Violet let bitterness enter her face. Not too much, just enough. "I served under them," she said, "like many did." His eyes sharpened. "And you loved them?" Violet laughed softly. "Ha! No, Your Majesty. They loved themselves enough for everyone. Always speaking of balance, always acting as if growing trees made them wiser than those who grew food or carried water. Their holier-than-thou speeches became rather tiring, if I'm honest." The Dragon King smiled. "So, you were glad that I came?" Violet bowed deeper. "I'm glad someone finally reminded them that power doesn't belong only to those born with their precious connections to dragons." That was the lie that saved her. Or, well, maybe doomed her, depending on how you look at it. The Dragon King believed it. "I believe you'll make a very good servant. You may choose a dragon." Violet walked among the captured dragons. She pretended to study them carefully. She paused beside Bloom only after looking at several others. Violet laid a hand against her scales and felt the buried bond tremble beneath the spell. "This one," Violet said. The Dragon King nodded. "Then you shall command it." The false connection was placed in Violet's mind. It felt horrible, wrong. But through it, Bloom lifted her head. Violet swallowed her pain and climbed onto the dragon's back. From that day forward, Violet rose quickly. She could no longer call on Bloom's power through a true bond, but she knew nature dragons better than anyone in the Dragon King's army. She knew how to use vines, roots, spores, flowers, and forests as weapons. She helped defeat the remaining Earth stronghold after the Water Dragon General's plan weakened them. She helped take the Air Dragon's stronghold, growing forests of vines into the sky itself and forcing Wind Dragons into predictable paths. She became the Nature Dragon General, and everyone believed she'd betrayed the old ways. Sometimes, alone at night, Violet would sit beside Bloom and place one hand against the earth. She couldn't hear it like she did before, but she could still feel whispers. She knew that somewhere out there were children who were not yet ready, eggs that were not yet hatched, and nights that had not yet gathered. So she waited. She waited through years of serving a king she hated. She waited while people feared her name. She waited beside a dragon who could not speak back. Because someday, the true dragon knights would rise again. And when they did, they would need someone inside the Dragon King's army. They would need someone who knew what she knew. Someone who remembered the old ways. So, she waited. And eventually, she got word that her waiting was not in vain. That a new group of children had hatched a new group of eggs. They'd taken over the Fire Dragon's stronghold, the Water Dragon's stronghold, and next, they were coming for her. She went to bed knowing that it was time, knowing that she would wait no longer. Good night, everyone.